I think, is also going live now. It should tell me when that happens. But who knows because technology. We're
Don't
just gonna
know, but I am live. So,
it says that we're now live. I in theory should have a screen that shows this, but
hello, America.
hello America. We are professional technology people. Hey everybody. I believe in theory we are live on Substack, on Facebook, on YouTube. My name is Deanna Zant. I am here with the fabulous Jim
Ooh,
Hightower.
fabulous, fabulous. Say it again.
The fabulous Jim Hightower.
Yeah,
How you doing, Hightower?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to chatting with people here and talking about whatever the hell we're going to talk about.
Whatever the hell we're gonna talk about. It would seem that we have no shortage of topics, so I just wanted
Yes.
to kind of quickly introduce us and say, if you are joining us for the first time, this is legendary Jim Hightower. We have a Substack. For those of you who are not watching us on Substack, it is at jimhightower.substack.com. And you can join us there, get Hightower's commentary, sign up, get all kinds of extra little bits and backstage passes, and do things also like be able to ask Hightower questions for this kind of show that we're doing together. And that's what we've done. We asked our readers last week. Um, if they had any questions to bring to Hightower, any stories, anything, and here we go. Hightower. This one's in from Maria, and I liked this because it is I think speaks to where a lot of our readers are. As you know, we tend to talk to a lot of people in red states. And Maria says, "Do you have any idea for those of us in totally red states with 100% Trump enablers, elected critters at both the state and national level? The usual call your reps only gets canned responses from ours." And she's in Wyoming. So, what
Yeah.
would you have to say to Maria?
This has been true for a long, long time. That contacting your Congress critter to say here's a very important issue to me, and please respond. Uh, is like just whistling in the wind. Yet it's got to be done. I think way back when I was a very young guy working for Ralph Yarborough, who was a U.S. Senator from Texas. I was in his Washington office for a brief period, a legislative position there, and we would get mail from our honored constituents, and they would ask questions. And so I was there. I was 22 years old, and so I'm opening up my first letter. Here's my letter from a constituent, a citizen of the United States, addressing their elected official with an important question, and it is addressed, "Dear Peckerwood." And I think, oh, wait a minute.
Oh,
so so
okay.
it goes both ways. There's not a lot of respect on either side there, honestly. But that is why activism matters. Yes, write to your representative, call your representative, confront your representative at meetings, go to rallies. It's all of that is important. But organize, organize, organize is what matters in politics. To bring voters against the SOB who is not responding to the people's wishes. And that's pretty much the story of Congress today. We have a Congress that does what people do not want done, and then does not do what people do want done. And that is the political crisis in our country. And it's not Trump. He's certainly
Hello. Yeah.
yeah, a major factor in it, and it's not the incompetence and weakness of the Democrats. It is whether we are going to stand up and say, "Wait a minute, you're supposed to respond to us, not come tell us to turn out the vote for this or that." So the local organizing is the one thing that really matters in politics. And by the way, it's working today, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, because we saw some things that work today. By the way, I'm messing with some of the camera settings. This is our first time for our listeners who are piling in. Hey, y'all! I see so many great people in here. I see Sandra and Lisa and Jackie. It's like romper room. I get to say all the names again. Hi, Lauren O'Leary. Lots of great people joining. So I'm messing with the camera settings and trying to get some things straightened out while you're talking. But we did see a victory today because of this kind of pressure. We had the Senate did not pass the funding bill for ICE today. And just a couple of weeks ago, Chuck Schumer was not responding to this kind of call. He was not responding to this
Right.
at all. And as a constituent of Senator Schumer's, I know.
Mm. Yeah, well, yeah, I can't say that Chuck Schumer has grown a spine, but maybe a spindle, a splinter, a little piece of something there. But he didn't grow it. The people grew it. And of
That's
course,
right.
the horror of two murders by ICE, by our own federal government, two people
Yeah.
murdered. That it's just a completely anti little d democratic,
Yeah.
anti-egalitarian, anti uh, American action by our government. And people finally said no. And the people of Minneapolis have been just heroic on the. I have spent a few days in the winter in Minneapolis and can tell you that it is not just cold, it is
Yeah.
bone cold, icy cold, hard to do. And they're out there every day and night for the last several weeks, really,
Yeah.
confronting this invasion of their city and an invasion of your city
Yeah.
by these thugs that ICE has become. Now, and of course, we've got to have homeland security, but that doesn't mean we need thugs go roaming down the street just looking for people to beat up and to pull out of their cars and to shoot. Literally, right in the back. In the case of Mr. Pettit, there, I'm saying that wrong. Anyway, the
Ready. Yes.
Pettit,
Yes.
yeah, two deaths, and Miss Good also murdered by our own government, and so finally, uh, because the people refused to leave the streets, and I've got to say, thanks to the National Guard of Minnesota, the local authorities, thanks to the police forces in Minneapolis, the local authorities who actually live among people there and have some sense of reality and community, they were not out trying to drag people, protesters, away and pound them on the heads and shoot them. They were delivering coffee and croissants and
This is
Minnesota
the best
kindness.
thing. I was I was so delighted when I saw that. They were like, "Oh, they've called up the National Guard," and I was just, despairing and horrified, and then it was like, "They've called up the National Guard who are now serving donuts and coffee to the
Yeah,
protesters." I'm just like,
yeah, yeah. No, I
America.
mean that is
Most Minnesota thing
that
ever.
well, that is Americanism. That is who we are as a people. Not this thuggish assault, autocratic, and let's say it fascistic. That's what it is. This is something that happened to Germany, and then the world similarly have outbreaks of this, and now it's in our own country, and that's what people have to fight, and that's what happened in Minnesota and is happening right now. Those protests force Democrats to stand up. And by the way, action spurs action. A few people standing up causes a few more people to stand up. And that causes a neighborhood to stand up. And that causes a city to stand up and a state. And finally, a nation. That's what it takes. Building over the long haul of this grassroots gutsiness. Politics has to have guts in it. It's not an exercise in good government. It's an exercise in power. And the bad guys are using the power to run roughshod over us, and the weak guys periodically the Democrats, unfortunately, in the case of the Senate, have been weaker than normal. But finally, because the people stood up, even Chuck Schumer, has had to stand up and say that and say that we're not going to just cave in to this autocracy in Minneapolis, or the autocracy of ICE, the thuggery of ICE. And so Democrats, with a few Republicans, have managed to say, we will just not fund you.
Yep.
Now, we'll see how long that stands, but it will stand as long as we, the people, force them to stand.
That's absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And that, I think that's really important to your point to Maria too, that yes, the calls to the senators, even if you get a canned response, the calls to the representatives, all of that stuff, it does, it is important and it does matter, but acting collectively and organizing together, that's the difference between activism and organizing, right? Like organizing, we're going to do this together.
Yeah.
I did look up for Maria a couple of, I'll drop these in the chat, but there's some great grassroots organizing on the progressive side of things in Wyoming that I found. I found Indivisible has 4 chapters in the state of
Mm.
Wyoming. Who knew?
Mhm.
They have groups like Better Wyoming and Wyoming Rising. And then there's a group called Equality State who will train you to be a grassroots lobbyist at the state
There you go.
level in Wyoming. That's what I'm talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to participate, and even if you're
Well,
surrounded by red elected officials.
yeah, and it's happening in Wyoming. It's happening in so-called red states. In every red states, there is a sizable blue and purple community that is the majority, and we have to appeal to them. Here in Texas, not known for its liberal policies currently, has. We have a political change sweeping the state because the people are creating the change. For the Believe it or not, for I don't know 2 or 3 decades now, we have had state legislators and even members of Congress elected with no opposition from the Democrats. No Democrat running for the office. This time, for the first time in 2 or 3 decades, we have every congressional and state representative seat contested by the Democrats. Now, many of those maybe, are not going to win, but they're going to build a possibility. They're going to build a core that itself will build and expand and will elect progressives. We are not a right wing state. We're not a Republican state. We're a non voting state. And people are not voting because the Democrats have not been standing up and offering a genuine alternative vision of what America can be. And that's the big change that is beginning to take place. So take heart and fight back.
Yeah, the idea that when you think about your red state, certainly, the people that I know, I think about people like Jess Piper in Missouri, who is in rural Missouri and really fighting the good fight, and is constantly surrounded by people in her community that are conservative voters
Yeah.
and who share our values. This is the other thing that I kind of wanted to hone in on what you said there too, was about, that we have to appeal to them. This is something you and I talk
Yeah.
about a lot in our work. And people on the left hear that sometimes, and particularly liberals on the, will hear like we have to appeal to them, as if that means that we have to give up our values, that we have to throw somebody under the bus. And that's actually not true. That
Our
when
values are
we
their values, actually.
exactly, and the values of community, we're in this
Yeah.
together. We stand together. We're figuring this out. I love my community. I love, who I grew up in a rural small town, and now I live in Brooklyn, but it's like a small town here in Brooklyn. We all know each other. I loaned a guy down the street a shovel because he was trying to shovel out his driveway with a garden spade, because that's what you do with your neighbors.
Well,
Anyway, this is all to say that we don't throw anybody under the bus, and we never have to, and we never will, and that's something that we can keep fighting for. So yeah. Ooh, look at all of these people in the live stream. I love hi, I see Mark and Lana and Timothy. I see Sin, Dissenter. Oh, some of my favorite commenters, some people that comment really regularly on our stuff. Some of my favorites. There's Clinton and Suzanne Hollister. I've sent you a bunch of their comments to read because they're really great people. Georgia, I believe. And so another question that we got in was from Shira. She was referencing in my post, I mentioned that in your campaigning days, you had some creative ways of getting around Texas. And those stories for me have been some of the coolest things I've ever heard. So what about the guy there was a guy and you and, Mac Martinez were telling me this story about the guy, I think he was up in the Panhandle, the first guy. No, what was that about?
Well, um, this is really a story about the joy of campaigning. If you're a real grassroots politician, there's so many odd and truly wonderful experiences that you have. One, you get into places that as a regular person you never would. I would not have been allowed to go into a black church in Houston where the preacher is a singing preacher and he sings the whole sermon and everything in it. Uh, and I would not have gotten into so many Mexican American communities. And there's so many places that you sort of know they're there, but you don't know what they are. And so that is part of the joy of a real grassroots campaign versus television and internet campaigning. And so, yeah, Texas is, you might have heard, a kind of a large state. And so trying to say, I'm statewide candidate for agriculture commissioner means you've got to go to 254 counties. You got to go a long ways. One way you get there, being, in my case, a poorly funded candidate, is to rely on people who have airplanes. And I'm not talking about corporate executives zipping off to Davos or to summer in the south of France, but I'm talking about people who use their planes to get from here to there. And that means farmers, that means trial lawyers, and et cetera. So one example is Melvin Lowry, out in West Texas, halfway between Lubbock and Amarillo, and I would campaign out there. So I would go to Lubbock and spend 3 or 4 days there, and then somebody would pick me up and move me to the next stop. In this case, Amarillo. So Melvin was the pickup, and so he had a plane. And so off we take from Lubbock, headed to Amarillo, and Melvin says, I could really use a beer. And I said, well, Melvin, I wouldn't be against that. And he says, well, let's just stop at my house and we'll pick up a beer. And stopping at his house meant landing the plane on his farm. And you don't land on the land, you land on the county road. And this is flat country out there, so you can see for miles. So people are used out there to farmers because they've got to cover a lot of territory. So farmers who will suddenly be landing their airplane on the county road, and they're used to pulling over to the side of the road if they see an airplane coming in. So we're landing. And I say to Melvin, looking out the right of my passenger window, I says, "Hey, Melvin, there's a high wire over here. You know that?" And Melvin said, the secret to the high wire is never look at the high wire. So you just land, And so we land on the county road and we taxi right off of it, right up to his house. Uh, and he pops out and gets a six pack and pops back in, and off we go to Amarillo, again on the county road. And people are pulling over. Well, there comes Melvin. Let's pull over. So that's grassroots campaigning. And just one more quick airlift story. Uh, David
Just
Hall,
a
a
quick
wonderful.
question. One of
Okay,
one of the how far would it be to drive from Amarillo to Lubbock or Lubbock to Amarillo?
3 hours. No, two and a half hours. three
Yeah,
hours.
so
Yeah,
enough
it
that
was
it's
not.
like, you
No,
know.
no, it's not. It's not a cross country trip, or not 3 hours. No, no, no. It's
Right.
two hours. At
Okay.
most,
Okay.
including strange takeoffs. Uh, so then I'm down in the Rio Grande Valley, uh, and David Hall, a fabulous advocate for farm workers and a trial lawyer down there. David Hall also is a pilot. He has a plane, and so we do an event down there, and then he's going to fly me back to Austin, which is about a 2 hour flight. And so we get in, or he gets in, I get in, and my passenger chair is a kitchen table chair, like this, like this. So that's my passenger chair, but it has a seat belt, which of course would be useless, but nonetheless, it's strapped to the chair, and so, and then it gets worse because uh, the plane isn't a powerful engine, uh, and so Mac Martinez, traveling with me in aid, he and another guy, local guy. Have to get behind while David Hall revs up the engine at the end of the runway and revs it up and then turns it loose, and they have to hold up the tail of the plane and run down the runway with it to get it in the air. And I am a serious candidate for statewide office in the state of Texas. But that's it. It's real life and real fun, by the way.
That is, I mean, I'm just I'm just picturing opening up a plane door and seeing a kitchen chair with a
Right.
seatbelt.
Yeah,
I do think the seatbelt is a nice touch though, don't
yeah,
you?
it was a
You
nice
know?
time. Yeah, right.
Just
Uh,
safety
well, we survived.
matters.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
We made it. Anywho,
Lord. Yeah, good times. Also landing on a county road to get beer. I mean, that is like the top for
yeah.
me, that is the top beer run story. Anytime somebody says like, "Oh, I got a funny beer run story," I'm like, "No, you don't. No, you don't."
Uh,
Oh, man. Alright. Back to some of the
yes.
other, reader questions. We had, Fred. Fred has noticed a serious problem with the Democratic leadership of the Senate, particularly, and he says he's noticed that AOC and Jasmine Crockett are posting, about the actions and the votes that they have taken that are in defiance of the oligarchy, and the a lot of Democratic senators are treating this, like, when you and I were talking earlier, I used the whole, bringing a pen to a knife fight,
Yeah.
problem. And even, really badass senators like Elizabeth Warren, who does do great things, who I particularly really love. Like, why is she not in Minnesota laying down on the streets with the people, trying to stop this kind of
Yeah.
thing? Um, and so Fred says, it seems like those outside of the Democratic power structure are the only ones with fight in them. Am I missing something?
No, it is true, but that spurs inside action over the long haul. And again, we're back to grassroots organizing. Uh, uh, I mean, Elizabeth Warren uh, doesn't have to be out laying her body on a street. Uh, but she has to be what she is trying to do, rallying local people to come inside to Washington, and that's where Washington power is, and that's what's wrong with Chuck Schumer and Jeffries and the Democratic leadership is still captured by the Washington mentality of we have power and we should be able just to call on local people to support us rather than we should be out there rallying local people to support themselves and come in here and raise hell about what's going on. So the good ones, Jasmine Crockett here in Texas, Greg Casar, who's done a terrific job, another member of Congress out of our area here in Central Texas,
Mhm.
and others all across the country. And now they have spurred other candidates. We have people like Plattner up in Maine running for the Senate. We have a new lady out in Seattle who got elected by running this kind of
Oh, yeah.
grassroots action out there, elected as mayor in that city. So this is where power comes from, is from the grassroots. It doesn't come from Washington down. It's got to come from grassroots up. So that is what we have to focus on. And the good news is it is happening. It's an incremental process. Doesn't happen overnight, but every victory that we have creates new possibilities for victory because it encourages other people to take action.
That's absolutely spot on, and we have, as we were just discussing earlier, for those of you, I see that a bunch of people have just joined at the top of this happy hour. You can go back and watch tomorrow. I'll be posting the video. Uh, we have seen today that that action has meant something, that Chuck Schumer has said something now, like, "Oh, we're not gonna pass that bill." And it's like, "Wow, Chuck, where you been, man? Writing those
Oh,
strongly worded letters."
yeah, right. He was probably washing his mouth out with soap after that. Oh my God,
Honestly.
did I actually say that?
And,
And
the
he
other
only
thing that
said
I
it because regular people stood up. That's the only reason he said it.
honestly, he was probably, like, twitching on the inside, like, "I can't believe I'm gonna say this out loud, but we're not gonna do that."
Well,
God
and see,
bless
it's
him.
not so much. I know we've had some people questioning. Well, why don't we have a project 2025? Why don't we
Yes.
stand up? And the truth is, we do. I mean, all right, Ralph Nader, Ralph, who's what 147 years old today. I don't know how old he is, but he has been fighting forever, and he has a litany of Project 25 things that need to be done now Project 2026 that need to be done to put America back on the democracy path and back on the grassroots path. Public Citizen, wonderful organization I've been associated with over the many years. They do terrific, just nitty gritty, dig it out kind of policy work, and and
The long
and
haul
and
stuff.
long haul stuff. That's right,
Yeah.
and fundamental stuff. They don't just deal with this SWAT, the flighty issue of the day. They deal with structural issues. How can we change things that make life better for regular people at a local level? So public citizen, Ralph Nader, and big ideas generally, and that's my main message for the Democrats. You have to have big ideas. Stop tinkering around with little stuff and being
Absolutely.
afraid to take on big stuff. People are wanting big stuff,
Yeah.
and I think Pete Buttigieg, who's not my favorite national political Democrat, but he's a bright guy and has a lot of good ideas, and he recently made a rather powerful statement. He said, "We are a country that at one time decided to outlaw the drinking of beer." In America, to make it unconstitutional, pass a constitutional amendment making it illegal to drink a beer. And then we realized that was stupid. And so we passed another constitutional amendment that said you can drink a beer.
Yeah.
And he says, if we can do that, can we not declare that a corporation is not a person and money is not political speech? Yes,
Amen.
we can.
We
But that's a big
absolutely can.
idea.
Yeah.
And it's an idea that the overwhelming majority, including Republicans, if they are in favor of. So we should run on that. That should be a central part of our politics, and that's a structural change. It would totally change politics in America. It would wipe out the Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg crowd, putting their billions of dollars into their selfish causes.
And it reminds me, we have wanted to write about this and haven't had a chance to get to it yet, particularly about money and politics. That the idea of a progressive 2020, project 2025, a big idea picture, people who are willing to fight that long haul fight. I'm thinking about the new leadership of the DNC, which is something that I think at some point we do need to talk about the difference between, hey Laura, go the other way. um uh if yeah, go the other way. Point the camera, turn the other way. um uh, that we do need to talk about the difference, yeah, there we go, between the DNC, the DSCC, the DCCC, like all of those lettered acronyms that you get fundraising asks for are different entities that are raising money for different reasons. But we see over at the DNC, Ken Martin's leadership with Jane Klebb as one of the vice chairs, who's chair of the state Democratic parties associations. One of the things that they've taken on is to get dark money out of Democratic primaries at the very
Yeah,
least, so that we
right.
can at least get candidates that aren't completely
Right.
corporate funded.
Yeah.
And that is a long haul. Larry Cohen, instrumental,
Yeah.
good friend of ours, from our revolution and
He's
CWA,
was a
and
former CWA president, a labor leader, a thinker, a fun guy. But
extremely fun guy to hang out with.
yeah, but very, very
Is
gutsy too. I mean, he wants to go right at the power, and that is
and
what
he
we have to
does.
do. Why aren't we tinkering
Exactly.
around the edges? You know.
Exactly that, and they're getting there, and they're working on it, and, I do shockingly, I'm not the hugest fan of the Democratic Party as an institution in general. It's kinda all we got kinda thing, in my opinion, but, I'm really hopeful, for once about the changes that I see there, and that maybe someday this spineless, Senate leadership particularly, will be no more.
Yeah, well, there, again, you push that, you push every institution you can, and that's happening. There are great groups here in Texas. We've got a wonderful woman who's led a movement called Mothers Against Greg Abbott, MAGA. Greg Abbott being the governor of Texas, repressive right wing screwball. Uh, so, so she's formed MAGA, Mothers Against Greg Abbott. And she's holding sessions all across Texas, teaching campaign people and candidates how to run for office. And to have the guts to stand up on big issues. That's making a change, and that is the way real change happens. And that goes back to the populist movement of the 1860s, 1870s, and 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s in particular. That's what people. That's how they organize, and they built a political movement that has been unsurpassed since. It got crushed because of bankers and because of money interests and because of weak-kneed Republicans and Democrats conspiring to crush
Yeah.
the populist the what was called the People's Party, but they changed politics forever. They changed it. That's where the New Deal came from. That's where the progressive movement came from. That's where the civil rights movement came from as well. I don't mean that all of it came from there, but they inspired all these other movements
Yeah.
to move ahead
Yeah.
and to take action. And they did it, by the way. I want to stress this as we kind of come to the close of this, I guess, that politics doesn't have to be a bunch of committee meetings or even rallies. It can just be social functions. The populist movement began before they even had a political party for 15, 20 years. They were an economic movement based on what they called the cooperative commonwealth, and they were a cultural movement. They taught people how to read. Uh, Rural people in those days were illiterate. They weren't dumb, but they
In those
didn't
days.
have schooling. Yeah, they had no schooling, and so
Yeah.
populists created schools, and they created fun things for people to do to bring them together. Because in rural areas, particularly in those days, you're very isolated. You're a mile from your neighbor. Uh, and so people didn't have a chance to get to it. So the populist movement solve that by saying, all right, we're going to have a party. We're going to have a glee
Yeah.
club. We're going to have a parade. We're going to have this and that. And it was a social movement. It was lively and fun, and it made people want to come together. And then they got genuine education out of it. And then they got in. You know, Pete Seeger told me once, just to drop a name, but he said he started going to Chautauquas, and those of you in New York and Colorado and several other states will know what the Chautauqua movement is, and it is pretty much what I just described, a kind of county fair of politics, but with music and fun and dances and etc. And anyway, Seeger said he started going to the Chautauquas. He said because of the girls and the music, and then he got to listen to the speeches, and he realized there's something bigger going on here. And
Yeah.
so if you start with the cultural and start with the fun, Springsteen has just come out with a song about Minneapolis. I think it's the streets of Minneapolis or something.
Yeah.
That he's going to reach more people with that song than all the than all the senators are going to reach with their speeches. Willie Nelson, of course, is a great pioneer in this.
Mhm.
His his songs about standing up. Well, even what's his song uh, about you can't have your hatred and Jesus too.
Yeah.
Uh, and there are no exceptions to the rule. You can't
Nope.
have your hatred in Jesus too. That's a
Yeah.
powerful message that he reaches people that most politicians don't even know exists. And
Exactly.
so the music, the culture, the art, the artists, as we say in Texas, uh, are, are they are are going to reach more people than all the political speeches. So you got to think of politics in the bigger cultural context,
Yeah.
and defying the Trumpism in the most diverse context as you can possibly think of it.
Yep.
And I've been to some of those Farm Aid concerts that Willie puts on. And he's got the Black Keys there. He's got Mavis Staple there. He's got Little Joe Arenandis there, Ila Familia, etc. I mean, it, it's it's a it's a cultural phenomena without saying it's a cultural
Mhm.
phenomena. Just bring the people together, and they'll get along.
Mhm. Yeah, and the cultural context for people, who may be interested in learning more about populism, we wrote, last year and published, I will put it in the chat,
Sure.
we, a what is populism, to help folks understand this part of the lineage that we're in this long tradition of, and, I have to say, last summer, I was not feeling great about the state of the world as things were, kinda falling apart while we were working on this, and here I am reading farmers in, North Texas in the 1870s talking about, how this kind of vulture capitalism was destroying their community, and I just felt less alone. I just felt like, "Oh, I'm part of a continuum of something,"
Yeah. Right.
and we talk about so much feels unprecedented now. I love that meme that goes by every once in a while now that's just like, I'm really ready for some precedented times, please. Could we have some precedented times?"
Mhm.
Um where some of this, the tactics are really new, but honestly, a lot of it's not new. We've seen it before. We fought it before, maybe not in this way or in this form, but we've done it and we've prevailed. Not without harm, not without loss, not without all of the things and the grief that we have to go through as part of it, but we are part of a pretty badass, long, fun tradition. We have a good time. This was the other thing I was thinking of. I remember a couple of years ago, I was speaking, in Boston at a university, and I was speaking to a first-year student who told me about their activism and that they already felt like they were burning out, that it was too much, that it was too overwhelming, and that they didn't know how to keep going in activism at 18 years old. And my heart broke for them. My heart just absolutely broke. And I told them, my 3 cents or whatever it was. But I remember afterwards, I called you up and I said, "Hightower, what would you tell this person about feeling burned out at 18?" And the first thing you said to me, I'll never forget this. You said, "It sounds like they're not organizing with the right people." Like if you're not having fun, if you're not getting juiced out of this, at least sometimes, if it's only extracting and draining you, then, we've got to make some changes. And I think we see that now. I think we've seen that,
So,
throughout the
well,
last year, and
yeah.
we're getting the music. We got,
Yeah.
there's another meme. I love comedy, of course. Another meme that went by says it's not a good sign when folk music's getting good again. You know,
Yeah, so keep pushing. That's the message.
that's the message. And Woody Guthrie says, "All you fascists bound to lose." Uh, my official Woody Guthrie Center
Okay.
merch.
All right.
All
Okay.
right, y'all. Well, I think this does it for this evening. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We will schedule one of these again someday, but we really appreciate a look at all of these people here. It's been
Yeah. Thank
so
you.
fun. And if parting words, Hightower.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Keep pushing. That is
Keep
the word.
pushing. Keep
Keep pushing.
pushing.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
Adios.
y'all.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Mhm.
I'm waiting.
The
Okay.
message.
Oh God, sorry.